In this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate by doing a project. Many things that we have covered in the course so far. I'll talk about those as well, and then of course I'm going to do a small Java program here so that it just reinforces some of the basic concepts. Since this is an introduction course, I want to make sure that all of the concepts are now recapped at the end of the course. So by means of this project, we'll take a look at the concept of object-oriented programming, Java compiler, Java virtual machine, classes, methods, how everything ties in together. So this is the objective of this. And in doing so, I'm not only going to create a simple Java program, but also run you through some of the concepts just to reinforce everything that we've been learning so far. So let's jump right in. Let me go ahead and open the Eclipse editor. So once we're in the Eclipse editor, I'm going to go ahead and create a new class. So I'm going to demonstrate the concept of strings and how we can work with strings and use various methods within strings. So let's go ahead and click on new class. The dialog box appears. I'm going to call this string example and click finish. And this creates a public class called string example. Next, I'm going to go ahead and do the public static void main, and then of course our string, our command line argument, and the array. Perfect. Open the curly braces. Once I have this, next I'm going to demonstrate and add, let's say, the character ch, and I'm going to create an empty string and place some text within that string. So here's our string, and this would equal, within the curly braces, I'm going to say s, just type the word strings. It could be any word. I'm just going to keep it simple so that our concepts are clear. And then of course strings have to be within a single quote, so here's the next letter, and then of course my third letter is R, and then just typing this out, right? So, and of course our last letter would be the letter S. Perfect. Close the curly braces and place a semicolon. This way Java knows that we're end of this, and then let's go to the next line. Here, let me go ahead and do string, declare our variable, call s2, could be any name, and give it a name, call it string ch, place a semicolon. And all I'm doing here is converting the character array to string. That's what I'm doing here at this point, and we've done this before. So let me in fact place a comment. So converting character array to string. And let me go ahead and do another one. So string s3, and this equals new string, and this is just an example, and a semicolon. So what have I done here? Think about it. So we're creating a Java string by using a new keyword. That's all we're doing here, right? So let me in fact place this, since you guessed correctly. So Java string by new keyword. Great. So once I have these, let me in fact show you now how to obtain different printouts, right? So let me go ahead and do a system.out.println. And what am I printing? I'm simply printing our string s1. Well, we don't have s1. I started with s2. So let me go ahead and do s2. So it's no big deal. So if you want to leave it at s2, that's fine. S3 is fine. You can create others as well. So if you were to create, let's say, a string by the Java string literal, you can always just say string s1 equals Java. In fact, do this so it's easier. So let me go up here and just type string s1. And these are just different ways. Equals, and I'm going to say Java, place a semicolon outside the quotations. Perfect. So just three different s1, s2, and s3. So here I'm going to print out s1 first, and then do a system.out.println and print out s2. And of course, let me do the s3 as well so you can see. And later I'll show you how to manipulate these strings and work with different methods. So here's s3. Perfect. So let me go ahead and first run this before I start manipulating and showing you how to use different methods with these strings. In other words, how do we in fact go about and work with these different strings. So let's click on the Run button here. Save and launch dialog box appears. Let's click OK. And of course, just a simple output, Java, strings, and example. So here's our Java, S1, and then S2 is of course the array, which is strings, and then our example as well. Now, we can always use various methods with these strings, such as the length, concatenation, uppercase, lowercase. You can replace these strings and so on. In fact, the java.lang.string class or library has a bunch of methods, and you can see them here on the screen as well. You can always search for them and have a look so that you can use them within these examples. So let me in fact show you a couple of them. So let's do a system.out.println, and here if I were to know the length, for example, of the S2, I can simply say S2 dot, and notice using the Eclipse editor is wonderful because as soon as you place a dot, Java knows that I'm looking for a method now, right? So what am I looking for? It shows me different methods that I can use. So here's the length, for example, that I can use, the trim, the substring, I can use the character, concatenation, I can replace values, and so on. There's a whole list of these methods that automatically Java Eclipse Editor using the IntelliSense brings these up. But over time, once you practice working with Java code, you'll memorize these and this will be second nature to you. So let me go ahead and just select length, hit the enter key, and what this would do is, for example, if I were to run this again, click on the run button, click OK, and notice the answer, the output is 7, right? So since S2 is there, the word is strings, contains 7 letters. Let me show you another one. Let's do a system.out.println. And what if I were to convert, let's say, the word strings into uppercase? So I could do so. So let me go ahead and do S2 dot, and the method is called to uppercase. So I can do lowercase, uppercase, character array, compare values, and so on. Here I'm going to say uppercase. Here it is. And run this again so you can see the output. Click OK. And perfect. Now our word strings is in uppercase. Let me show you one more, how to replace values. What if I were to replace or maybe change certain letters in the word strings? Maybe you want to say springs. Easy. So let's go ahead and do a system.out.println, and of course do our S2, use the replace method. And what am I replacing? Several options that are available to me. I can replace a character, so simply enter the old character and then of course with a comma and then the new character. I can replace the character sequence and so on. So here I'm going to replace, let's say, the letter T into the letter P. So instead of strings, it's going to say springs. Great. So let's open the parentheses and notice automatically it says old character. So I'm going to say the old character is the letter T. And of course, the new character is the letter P. Perfect. Get rid of this. Great. So let me run this and see what happens. Let's click on run. The save and launch dialog box appears and click OK. And perfect. Now our word is springs. So different ways you can play around with strings in Java and others as well. So if you were to, let's say, manipulate numbers, you can do so. So the more you work with the Eclipse editor, for example, the more you write code, and begin with writing simple code. So you don't have to think about the complexity at this point. Just understand the basic concepts and then apply them piece by piece. And then at the end, once you practice several times, it'll become easier for you. Not only to understand the concept of object-oriented programming, but also how to write Java code and learning the syntax. And of course, throughout the course, we've been using hands-on tutorials so that you actually see hands-on how Java works. Let me in fact talk about some of the basic concepts, again recapping some concepts that we've been using all along within this course. So let me switch to the slides here. So like any other programming language, the Java language has its own structure, syntax rules, and programming paradigm, and we've seen this throughout this course in different lessons. The language itself is based on the concept of object-oriented programming. In other words, everything in Java is an object, which the language's features support. So similar to, let's say, the C language, derivative, its syntax rules look much like the C language. For example, the code blocks are modularized into methods and delimited by braces. So we've been using these curly braces and parentheses all along. And variables are declared before they're used. And of course, we must declare a variable in every program. Structurally, the Java language starts with packages. We've also done that. We talked about packages, how to create a package. A package is the Java's language's namespace mechanism, right, to organize code. And of course, within packages, there are classes, and within classes are methods, variables, constants, and more. So whenever we write a program, we write the source code in .java files. So everything is saved in .java files, and then we compile them. So the Java compiler checks the code against the language's syntax rules and then writes out the bytecode in .class files. And these are binary files, right, that are automatically created as you create .java files. This bytecode is a set of instructions targeted to run on the Java virtual machine, also known as the JVM. So in adding this level of abstraction, the Java compiler differs from other language compilers, which write out instructions suitable for the CPU chipset the program will run on. So just a word on the Java compiler, and of course we've been creating Java files and then the .class files. JVM simply reads and interprets the .class files and executes the program's instructions. So the virtual machine is where everything happens. The interpretation happens of the bytecode, just as the CPU would interpret the assembly language instructions. So the JVM is the heart of the Java's language's write once and run anywhere principle. So your code can run on any chipset, for example, for which a suitable JVM implementation is available. So as long as your computer, your hardware supports JVM implementation, you can run Java. JVMs are available on all major platforms like Linux, Windows, and subsets of Java language have been implemented in virtual machines for mobile phones and of course hobbyist chips as well. So the development kit, JDK, in addition to the compiler and other tools that we looked earlier, a complete class library of pre-built utilities that help you accomplish most common application development tasks. And this is where all the libraries come in. We used in this lesson or in this course the import, right? So you can import a Java library and use the classes pre-built to your own needs and requirements. The JRE, or the Java Runtime Environment, includes the JVM, code libraries, components that are necessary for running programs that are written in the Java language. And of course, the JRE is also available for multiple platforms. You can freely redistribute the JRE with your applications, of course, according to the terms that you must comply. Once you download the JDK, which we took a look at in this course, how to do that, the JRE is included within the download. We'll talk about certain keywords in Java. So, like any other programming language, it's a language that we must learn. The Java language designates certain words that the compiler recognizes as being special, so you can't really use them as part of the variable name, for example. So for that reason, you're not allowed to use them for naming the Java constructs. And the list is not that long, by the way. It's surprisingly short. Let me in fact show you some examples of reserved words. So these are all the words that you'll come across, and we've been using several of them within this course, such as private, protected, static, abstract, character, byte, interface, void, default, double, and so on. So these are the reserved words in Java. Okay, so keep these in mind. And of course, once you practice, eventually you'll memorize all these reserved words. So data types can either be primitive. We took a look at that. So for example, the int, double, float, or a reference to another object. So for example, notice that age, for instance, is an int, a primitive type, and that NAE is a string, an object. Here's the detail of various primitive type that you can take a look at. So for example, the boolean, byte, character, short, int, long, float, and double. And of course, tells you the size, the default value, and the range of values as well. And of course, we've used these within this course. So operators, as you might expect, the Java language can do arithmetic. We've done that. And you've already seen how to assign variables. Let me, in fact, give you a brief look at some of the Java language operators that you may need and find helpful in improving your skills. So, for example, if you were to use the plus sign, it would simply add two things together. You can also use the minus sign, and depending upon how you use it, right? So the operators are listed, the plus, minus, multiplication sign, the backslash, plus, plus, and so on. And of course, the usage will give you the ability to see how they are implemented. And you can go through the descriptions as well and take a look at how these operators work. So additional operators that we worked with, we saw several other symbols that are called operators in Java, including a dot or a period, which qualifies names of packages and invokes method. In fact, in this lesson, when we worked with strings, remember when we placed a dot, the Eclipse editor automatically brought up a list of various methods. So the dot acts as a mechanism to invoke methods. So the parentheses, which simply delimit a comma-separated list of parameters to a method. And then new, which when followed by a constructor name instantiates an object. So we've worked with these additional operators throughout this course. The relational and conditional operators, the Java language gives you operators and control statements that you can use to make decisions in your code. And we looked at a simple example of an if statement. So most often a decision in code starts with a Boolean expression. That is one that evaluates whether it's true or not. And such expressions use relational operators, which compare one operand or expression to another, and conditional operators. So here are some of the operators and what they look like. So the greater than sign simply means A is greater than B. The greater than equals to operator would imply that A is greater than or equal to B, and so on. There's a whole list, and we've used several of these throughout this course. And of course, you can take a look at these in practice as well. So in conclusion, we took a look at how to understand the Java syntax, know the operators, know various data types, and of course, how to install and download our JVM, JDK, and JRE. So I hope this helps. Let's move to the next lesson.